Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to basically unpack complex ideas from sources you might not expect. Today, we're cracking open Be a Friend to Find a Friend by Tran. It really reads like a blueprint, almost a user manual for building solid friendships.
It's fascinating, right? Because the author, Tran, isn't coming from psychology. The background is computer engineering, IT management, even PhD work in IT management. So it's this very systematic, almost engineering mindset applied to relationships.
Exactly. That structure is what we're focusing on. A lot of books on soft skills can be a bit vague. This one promises like concrete steps, an actionable plan.
Spot on. And the core idea is laid out right at the start. It's not about what you get from friendship. It's all about what you give. About service. That's the fundamental principle we'll be exploring.
Okay, so let's get into that. The author frames this whole thing not as, get good at friendship and you're done. It's presented more as a continuous journey, constant learning, constant practice. So where does this structured journey actually begin?
Well, it starts with the absolute foundation. Listen, that's chapter 1.
Yeah.
Listening is positioned as crucial because it validates the other person. It confirms their experience, and that's how you start building trust. It's like the essential input mechanism.
Right, input validation. And it's treated as an active skill.
Yeah.
Not just sitting there quietly. What are the specific how-tos the author emphasizes for really effective listening?
Okay, so beyond the basics, eye contact, not interrupting, which, let's be honest, are just good manners. The key technique is reflect and paraphrase. This is really about confirming you received the data correctly. You're mirroring back their feelings or their message to make sure you've understood it. It closes the loop.
Can you give an example? Like, what's the difference between just reacting and properly reflecting?
Sure. Let's say your friend says, I'm totally overwhelmed. My boss is being impossible. A low-effort reply might be, oh, that's awful. Maybe find a new job. It jumps to solutions, maybe misses the feeling. But a high-fidelity reflective response would be something like, wow, it sounds like you're feeling incredibly stressed and really frustrated with how you're being treated. See the difference. You're naming the emotions overwhelmed, frustrated. You're showing you heard the core message without immediately trying to fix it or judge it. That's what builds connection.
Got it. That makes total sense. Now, what about the stuff we might miss? We often focus just on the words.
Yeah, and this is crucial. The author points out that what's not said explicitly can be just as important, maybe even more so. We have to pay close attention to nonverbal cues. Body language, tone of voice, facial expressions. Treat them as vital data points.
So if someone says, I'm fine, but they look completely defeated.
Exactly. The verbal data, I'm fine, conflicts with the nonverbal data. Slumped shoulders, flat tone. The blueprint says you need to acknowledge that discrepancy, maybe gently probe it. You can't just ignore the nonverbal signals.
Okay. I can see the value in the structure, but I wonder, does framing friendship like this, almost like an algorithm, risk making interactions feel, a bit cold or calculated?
That's a fair question. I think the author tackles that by keeping the focus firmly on service. If your goal is genuinely to serve your friends' needs, to support them, then the structure is just the set of tools you use to do that effectively and reliably. It's not about a transaction like I do this, so you owe me that. It's about providing genuine support.
Right, the intention matters. Okay, so we've covered listening, gathering the input. Let's move to the internal processing. Chapter 4 is about empathy.
Yes, empathy is like the central processor here. And the book makes a really important distinction between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone. Empathy is deeper. It's the ability to truly understand and even share the feelings of another person. And importantly, it's presented as a skill you can develop, not just something you have or don't have.
So how do you practice that? If I understand my friend's feeling, what's the empathetic action?
It's about validating feelings, actively acknowledging the legitimacy of their emotion. So instead of saying, oh, it's not that bad, you'd say something like, I get why you feel so overwhelmed right now. That sounds incredibly tough.
Okay.
And then maybe ask open-ended questions that help them explore it, like, how are you managing with all that? Or what usually helps you when you feel this stressed? You're showing you understand and you care about how they're coping.
That kind of sharing definitely needs a safe space, which seems to lead us straight into Chapter 8, respect. How does respect fit in?
Respect provides the essential structure, the safety container, for empathy to actually work. You can't really be vulnerable or connect deeply if you don't feel safe and valued. Respect in this framework means recognizing your friend's individuality, their autonomy, and crucially, their boundaries.
Okay, boundaries. How does that play out in practice? Let's use an example.
All right. Say a friend is going through something difficult. and explicitly says, I just need a couple of days totally alone to think.
Hmm.
Practicing respect means you honor that request. You give them the space. You don't push. You don't call constantly. And this is key. You don't take it personally. You respect their need for processing time.
Right. Not making it about my need to help or connect.
Exactly. And respect also covers reliability. Doing what you say you'll do, showing up, keeping promises. These actions build trust, which is fundamental to that feeling of safety.
That talk of trust naturally brings up, well, what happens when trust is broken? Relationships aren't perfect systems, they glitch. Chapter 6 tackles forgiveness. How does this blueprint handle those inevitable system failures?
This part's really interesting. The author frames forgiveness primarily as something you do for yourself, for your own internal system health, basically. Holding on to anger, resentment, it takes up energy, emotional bandwidth. Forgiveness is presented as the process of releasing that burden. It frees up your resources.
So it's almost self-care, releasing negativity for your own sake.
In a way, yes. It's about unhooking your emotional well-being from what someone else did. But, and this is a critical point in the blueprint, forgiving does not mean you have to forget, nor does it mean you have to tolerate ongoing harmful behavior.
Ah, okay. That's vital. So you can forgive the feeling, the anger, but still maintain a boundary.
Precisely. Let's say a friend constantly lets you down, breaks promises repeatedly. You can work on forgiving the anger and disappointment for your own peace of mind. But you might also need to set a boundary, like deciding not to rely on them for important things anymore. Forgiveness is internal emotional regulation. Boundaries are external protective measures. You often need both.
That's a really clear distinction. Okay, so we've covered listening, empathy, respect, handling breaches with forgiveness. Now we get to what the author calls the ultimate expression, right? The core philosophy in action. Serve. Chapter 13.
Yes, this is where it all comes together. Service is positioned as the peak expression because it directly implements that giving, not getting principle. It's about actively dedicating yourself, your resources, your attention to supporting your friend's well-being.
And it's not just about, like, grand gestures, is it? It's more everyday than that.
Oh, absolutely. The blueprint breaks it down into practical actions. Be proactive, notice needs, and offer help before being asked. Be available, just being present matters. And the really tough one, give without expecting return. Think about it. If you help a friend move, are you secretly keeping score, expecting them to help you next time?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. If you are, then it wasn't pure service, was it? It had strings attached.
Exactly. The purity of the intention matters. Sometimes the most powerful service is simply being there. Listening without judgment. Offering steady emotional support when someone's struggling, even if you can't fix their problem. That consistent presence can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, so we have all these components: listening, empathy, respect, forgiveness, service. The blueprint's conclusion ties it all together with a meta theme. Consistency is key.
Yes. Consistency is what makes the whole system reliable. Trust isn't built on one grand gesture or one perfect conversation. It's built through repeated, dependable actions over time. It's the small, everyday acts of listening, respecting boundaries, offering support done consistently that really create and maintain strong, lasting connections. It's about structural integrity built over time.
This whole approach is incredibly structured. We've walked through input, listening, processing, empathy, error handling, forgiveness, and core output service. But like any system, its effectiveness depends on the operator, right? The person implementing the blueprint.
Absolutely. And that's why the conclusion emphasizes self-reflection and self-mastery. To be a good friend, to truly serve others effectively using this model, you need a decent level of emotional intelligence. You need to understand your own reactions, manage your impulses. It requires self-awareness and ongoing self-discipline.
Which circles back to that idea of zero judgment, applying it to ourselves too.
Yes, and that's often the hardest part. The final principle is essentially zero judgment. This means accepting your friends, flaws and all, non-judgmental acceptance. But it also means having self-compassion, accepting yourself, because if this is a journey of learning, you will mess up. You'll fail to listen properly or react badly. You need to be able to forgive yourself, learn from it, and get back to practicing consistently.
Wow. Really reframes friendship. Less about luck, more about intentional, structured action based on service. We've laid out the blueprint: listening foundation, empathetic understanding, respectful boundaries, resilience through forgiveness, the goal of service, and the glue of consistency.
It really shows that even something as deeply human as friendship can benefit from a thoughtful, engineered approach. It requires ongoing effort, daily practice almost.
So, for you listening, here's our final thought. Inspired by Deep Tran's systematic view, If friendship needs consistent input for strength and reliability, what's one specific, small, consistent action you're willing to commit to this week? Maybe it's truly paraphrasing what someone says for just 2 minutes. Maybe it's offering help proactively, just once. What small input can you make to improve the structural integrity of one of your connections?